everybody, and welcome to our EASYCreate Best Practices webinar, which is focused on item, vendor, and customer records requisition self-service. I'm Katie, and I'm the Marketing and Sales Coordinator here at KRISE. And with me today is Doug, our Sales Manager, Suman, the Chief Technology Officer, and Kent, our EASYProcess Evangelist. I just want to let you guys know that if at any point you guys have questions, you can always ask them in the question box on the right-hand side of your screen, and we'll try to answer them when it seems appropriate during the demo. So with that, I will hand it over to Doug.
Katie, thank you very much. And first thing, thank you everyone for taking your valuable time and attending this KRISE webinar. It is being recorded, so we will send you the recording in case you wanted to review it, or hopefully you find it interesting and possibly let your peers review it. But let me explain the agenda and the format of this webinar. We want to get to the meat and potatoes of our software solutions. This will be a live demonstration working against our JD Edwards Enterprise One environment. We're going to be showing you demo environments. We're going to be highlighting some customer case studies in terms of our actual deliverable in a production environment. We'll be touching on Carolina Biological, a customer of ours on the East Coast. And they use our EASYCreate for item masters, and they're an excellent example in terms of the business value using shared folders and Excels and emails, and it was a laborious process, and many times issues arose from the process, so they wanted a holistic portal for the initiation of items and the workflow. They have very complex workflow, by the way, and obviously the JD Edwards integration in this particular case, the 4101. We'll also touch on Wilbur Ellis for our customer master. Same thing, initiate workflow, create the customer master. And Fox, this is Fox Los Angeles, and they use us with vendors. So same type of process. And what I'm going to do is keep the PowerPoints to a minimum, and I want to get into showing you our demo environments for a couple of our products. Then I want Suman Prasad, who's here, to show you the technical platform so that the personalization, the company, the market, the industry-specific nuances can be addressed with each and every deliverable. You might have customized JD Edwards environments, thus the necessity to integrate against custom business functions. Absolutely no problem with that. So I'll work through the PowerPoints. I'm going to be brief. I want to get right to the demonstration. We have a demonstrations, plural. We have a lot to cover today. First off, virtual meeting, just to let you know we're in Aurora, Illinois. There's a lot of Auroras. I'm familiar mostly with Colorado, but we're Midwest, about 35 miles straight west of the Loop in Chicago. We've been a company for over 10 years, actually more like 13, 14 years, going back to 2003. And we are a pure software company. It's important because there's JD Edwards service providers that provide software solutions. We fit into JD Edwards ecosystem as a pure software company, only focused on the services with our software. We have a number of practice areas, and I'm just going to use the cursor here. We're very big into e-commerce and payments. We've got dozens and dozens of JD Edwards E1 companies using us, big companies like Mercury Marine, Treasury Wine Estates, and then the second area of practice, and by the way, the payment side is JD Edwards, especially for customer invoices, for collections, and sales order entry. It doesn't have built-in functionality for credit card and e-check. So we're a vendor that provides that within the context of either e-commerce or for CSRs, for non-web orders inside the P4210 or Power Forms. So that's what the payments means there. This webinar is focused on our EASYCreate line of products. We also have a number of products dealing with vendor, buyer, PO acknowledgement, a portal for that, and PO change process between buyers and suppliers, AP automation, whether it's vendor vouchers, 2-3-way invoices. We have HR solutions, and we have what I call custom, miscellaneous other solutions. This is just a representation of some of our JD Edwards companies, so it's proven, and I'm happy to say it. In fact, I'm very proud to say that every one of our customers, they're also a reference customer. That's our mission statement, is to make sure that every one of our customers, in fact, would be willing to reference K-Rise from a company and a product and a process perspective. Now let me tell you a little bit about EASYProcess, and we're showing in this diagram here EASYProcess as a platform sitting underneath with our applications on top of it there. As a software company, we're not coming from, say, what you might think of as a more traditional software company that's focused in .NET programming or Java programming or C# or PHP. What we've done is we've created an enterprise application development and integration platform with 400 services. In fact, let me go to this slide here. With 400 services, not just JD Edwards, but SAP and EBS and Salesforce.com and SharePoint, if somebody wants SharePoint to be the UI like some of our customers. So you're dealing any ODBC database. In fact, that's relevant within the context of what we're going to be showing today. And then another component of EASYProcess is the process logic. And this is visual modeling. It's hard to see this. Suman is going to show this in his demo, but I just want to kind of overview it from the 20,000-foot perspective. So it's visual, drag and drop widgets on the process canvas. This is where we integrate against business functions, or you come back and you say, no, want to integrate with Z-file processing, direct database insert and calls. And then we have the workflow canvas. Workflow is hugely important within the EASYCreate line of products. Then we have a web part and the device that you're using it from. And the device could be traditional resolutions, the 1028, 768, etc., that you find on desktops and PCs and even tablets. But we also use responsive adaptive design for mobility. In fact, we're unique as a software company. We also take our products and we even provide, if you'd like, native app functionality. So the application embedded within the context of Google Play, Apple App Store, we're very, very good at that. So we cover, in other words, we cover both elements of mobility, browser, or native mobile app. And here's a positioning of our many products. And by the way, I went by a slide here, and this is an important slide. K-Rise, we're a gold partner, so even though we work with other ERPs, 90+% of our focus is JD Edwards. My background personally, I've been living JD Edwards both as an ex-employee in the 90s. I was part of the marketing and sales organization before moving into the ecosystem, and like Suman too, he's done implementations at other times in his career, and you find that with our company. So from an Oracle JD Edwards perspective, that's our primary focus. We're a gold partner. We do everything with Quest in terms of collaborate and focus and all of the other regional and local user group meetings. Just a couple of weeks ago, I was down at the Houston user group meeting. But from a product perspective, we've taken our products and we've validated them. And companies need, and need to be focused on this, not just from, say, barcoding, RF mobility functionality like, DSI and RF Smart and that, but any software company. And Oracle and John Schiff and Lyle, they're all very, very focused on this. They want the partner network to have solutions that are fully vetted, and ours are fully vetted. In fact, to the extent that Oracle has assigned us JDE System 99 codes to utilize, so there's absolutely no issue with object conflicts if you upgrade JD Edwards, either the tools or the version, or upgrade ours. And I just want you to keep that in mind. So we've got you covered from that perspective. This is an example of our workflow canvas, which is really important within the context of the demonstrations, and Suman's going to go over it in detail. And there's the EASYCreate, and here's the business process canvas. Suman will touch on that. There's a web part with properties. So Suman will cover the technical side. I wanted to stay focused on the business side. A couple of last slides. We want you to understand that platform really does matter. From a deployment perspective, on-prem, working with virtual Windows servers and SQL Server, cloud, either from a SaaS model or true multi-tenant cloud, or even hosting. Maybe you've got, a contract with Microsoft Azure or Rackspace, and and by the way, we do too. We work real strong with Rackspace and a lot of the cloud providers, but we look at that almost as a commodity. Our software simply works. And Suman, why don't you briefly explain these 4 layers that I have up there at this point, and then you can get into the technical showing after I do the demonstration.
Absolutely. So at the very bottom, you are looking at the enterprise system layer. This is a layered architecture diagram of the platform. So the bottom layer is your network, your enterprise. That's where your different business systems are sitting, whether it's a JDE Edwards, whether it's a different SQL Server, Oracle servers, or email servers. We can connect to all of those with our toolset layer. That's our one part of the platform layer. We call that toolset layer. There you get all the services, which, like Doug said, I'll be showing you a little later. And I can show you all the 300 plus services we have, whether it's a database connectivity or email connectivity or business function connectivity. You will see that. And then on top of that, we give you a factory layer. So factory layer allows you to create user interface or process factory or workflow factories to put this all services together to get a job done. So once you're done with toolset layer, the next level is the application layer, and that's where we build different applications. So we are going to be talking about EASYCreate today, which is item, customer, or vendor creation in the JDE master files. And of course, we have other applications, which is e-commerce and vendor self-service. And the final layer is the user layer. That's how users get to experience the applications that is being built with the EASYProcess platform. So there you see, of course, a very common interface right now is the browser, which is how most of the people are using all the web applications right now. But we are also ready for the future. We have apps where we are supporting native apps, so whether it's iOS, Apple apps, or Android, Google apps, where you can actually custom build these apps using our platform and publish it using your names, your company name, or your company logos.
In fact, Suman, our approach to app, it changed about a year ago because we started doing a lot of components or tool set based projects, like one with Christie's, the auction company. They use JDE E1. They wanted, and you can see this at the user up here, their third-party application is My Christie's. They're auctioning and bidding, Lutron, another example. So from an app perspective, because, and especially REST here, REST has become the predominant integration API with more so than SOAP web services, right?
That is correct.
Okay.
The third way of user experience using our product is third-party applications. So if you have Salesforce.com and you need certain piece of item information that you create to populate in Salesforce, we can do that using our REST APIs.
So we've taken that, somewhat open standards, and that's what this is. You're looking at service-oriented architecture, as pure as you can get, and that's why it really, really does matter when you do upgrades. We can do it on an a la carte level, and we're very much set up like JD Edwards with tools and versions, and at the app level, we decided not to use a framework. So we give you, with app, the IP. For Android, it's the Java code. For iOS, it's called Objective-C to work on iOS. You can have us publish it if you wanted to enhance it further or put it within the context of a mobile framework, whether it's Oracle's mobile framework or Bootstrap or something like that, open source. So I emphasize that because we try to do things from a very much an open standards perspective, and that's why the mentioning of REST APIs and that is real. It's built into the EASYProcess. Now, next slide here. You know what? I'm not going to get into the detailed list, but you see EASYCreate PO. I mean, we do have a lot of features, functionality within the concept of, or within the constraints of a webinar. Can't get into everything. But afterwards we can send it to you. Also, one demo, I'm going to do vendor onboarding first, and then I'm quickly going to do item master create. And as you can see with the item master, there's a lot that goes into creating the 4101, and we take all of that into consideration if you want. If you want the implementation to be 100% business function centric in terms of the integration, or Z-File, or we even have a company on the East Coast that uses FTP out as a service, and their workflow is integrated directly with the supplier, right, Suman, like from a shared folder?
Yes, they upload those files. It's a third-party vendor which validates their items for certain kind of quality assurance, and we basically read their files and integrate that with our workflow.
All right. So here's the last slide. I'm going to first jump into vendor onboarding, and what you can see here is I'm going to start from the position of a requester, somebody that initiates the form. It's very, very basic. It goes to an AP manager, goes to an accounting person, and then that accounting person is simply going to update it. They're going to publish it and update it in JD Edwards. So with that, and by the way, Suman is good. After I'm done with the demo, he's actually going to go into EASYProcess and show you the details. So let's start out with vendor onboarding. So I just logged in, and you can see that there. I logged in as requester. So I'm going to be dealing with 3 profiles: requester, AP manager, and accountant. So I'm logged in as requester, and you can see, we have menus up there. We've also put it there. I'll explain my actions and my requests as we go through it. But I'm going to do 2 use case scenarios, one creating a vendor record in JD Edwards and one changing a vendor record in JD Edwards. First off, this is the form for the vendor to create a new vendor, and it could be any form. And with this form, we are integrated against your UDC. So as an example, state, we're set up with U.S. and only states, but if you were Canada with a Providence, it would come from there. Even vendor names. So let's do webinar, new vendor, 1, 2, 3. And then the select type, and once again, this could be outside of JD Edwards, or this can be coming from UDC from within JD Edwards. And you can make the names mandatory, so you can see this is mandatory here. So let's do webinar, vendor, 1, 2, 3. And remittance address, So I'll go ahead and use the form fill in there. Vendor phone number is a required field. I'll do that. And then with that, if you wanted to attach a file, I could do that. So I can come in here and attach a file, which I just did, and I can give it a name and possibly say this is terms document. Entity, but once again, it's up to you, and we work with you from a requirements perspective. Now, this additional information, if you wanted to follow the workflow preferences of somebody else, that's what requested is by, or it's going to default to right here, the buyer. So I do a submit, and it's telling me federal tax or the Social Security number is required. So with that, 6, 7, 8, 9. It does require 9 fields. I'll go ahead and submit this. So your request has been sent to AP Manager for approval, your reference number. So this is an internal reference number that we create. And if I was to log out now and go into AP, there's the login for AP. So this is now the AP Manager logging in. But before I do that, I want to go to my Outlook email, and you can see a couple of things. First off, it's an email that's noting that I'm creating, and here's an email that's forwarded to the AP Manager. Now, once again, workflow needs a good a process for updating and validating and confirming that steps have gone through. And this is a boilerplate form, but notice, and this is real important down here, the approve or deny. This is huge. So from an approve perspective, the AP Manager could just hit approve. We create a new email, and if I was to send this, the portal would parse this email and flag it as improved. Now, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to show approval from the portal, and notice the deny there too. Even auto login link. So if the user wanted to take this request and not go through the process of logging in with password, this is additional intelligence that we can build into the email. In fact, correct me if I'm wrong, Suman, but the auto login link, we can even add like a time frame limit or something like that, right?
Yes, it can expire at a certain time. Yes.
Right, right. And this is huge because, as an example, Fox, I want to show examples of the Fox case study. And Kent, you were saying that it took on average 2 days for a vendor to be approved down to a couple of hours. And they're dealing with thousands of new vendors every month. And I believe the key thing there is that the managers are using the emails from a mobility perspective and simply able to move the process forward. So this email is key.
Yeah, really from the golf course, it's always handy to be able to do things on your phone.
Good way of putting it, Kent. And once again, the email, it could have the approval flow that it came from the buyer and it's going to AP Manager. But let's actually go back to the portal right now. So from an AP Manager, what they're going to do is they're going to click on approve, and they're going to see that webinar, new vendor 123, a new vendor request. They're going to be able to go in and look at the detail, and that's what we're seeing right here. And they're going to be able to approve it. And once again, the users, what you want to make in terms of static information, what they can't change, what they can change, that's entirely up to you at the field level. And you'll get a better idea on that from the accounting perspective. So I do an approve on this, and it was sent to accounting for approval. So if I was to do a log out, and now at this point I'm going to log in as accounting. So now with this, I'm going to hit approve. And by the way, this is a good time to mention, and Suman, I appreciate your perspective on this. For approve, obviously, we're at the point with this particular one where you see approve, but watch is simply functionality that if you wanted another person to be fully aware of the actions taken on this vendor request, you can delegate a person, right?
Exactly. So this is a feature of the workflow where you can have someone else create a request on your behalf. So let's say a CFO wants the secretary to do something, and still wants to watch that request as it goes through the approval.
Right.
So that will be handy in that case.
And composing is pretty much analogous with draft.
Yes.
Okay, so that would be draft submitted, approved, denied. So now is the accounting person and the person that can publish this, notice that when they're clicking on it, the form is editable. So when I was AP manager, it was locked. The fields were locked. So this is an example of the, in fact, some of these fields, they're grayed out, they're locked, but other fields are editable here. So if they wanted to make changes to that, they can easily add more files. There's one file already added. So from this perspective, if the accounting person wanted to approve this, and it says 5566965 created in JD Edwards. So if I was to, by the way, look, at the information here, I'm going to go to JD Edwards right now. So 556-965, and I do a find, and then I take this, and this is the webinar new vendor 123, and I could do a select on it, and you can see that if I was to look at the mailing information, there it is with what I had. If I was to look at the additional information there, and that's why the point I'm making is any of the UDCs from this master record interacting against our form intelligently. We're reading it real time. So the form is a requirements discussion that we have with you. If I was to do a cancel on this, and there's a media object right there that we also created. So I'll do a cancel on that. So we can do attachments as the media object. So the item is created. Let's go back to the vendor portal here, and let's log out. Log back in as buyer. Now from this perspective, the buyer wants to do a vendor lookup. So I could do an alpha search here and type, AD. And once again, the type of filtering, and I have 6 results there. It's entirely up to you. If you just want to use keywords, if you want postal code, the level of filtering is up to you. So here's an example where, say I want to update this vendor from a buyer perspective. Now, the fields that I want to update have to be clicked. So if I was to say change the zip code to 60505 and change the phone number to 000, and I'm making that change here, and I want to do a submit on it, and vendor, for whatever reason, that's not entered, so I need to make sure that that's populated. That's a required field. So the vendor change request was sent to AP Manager. So if I was to log out, go back to the AP Manager, and log in, and look at the approve here, and there's vendor change request for buyer vendor address number 1. So you click on that, and obviously we do like to highlight the 60505 and changing the phone number there. So once again, in this particular case, it's a different workflow. I believe the manager has authority to directly publish it at this point to JD Edwards. So vendor 1 was updated. So if I come back here to JD Edwards and there it is right there. And we can see I changed 2 things, the zip code, which is the 505, and the phone in the address book. I changed that there. So you see the changes reflected. So this is very, very simplistic. I will show some case study screenshots of Fox. Before I do that, I wanted to show another example of our software. And I want to emphasize the personalization and the customization elements. Very, very strong. So like I said, everything centers around your unique requirements. So with that, let's go back to the portal here. And let me start from scratch into our item. Now with EASYCreate item, I do want to reference real quick the process flow that I'm going to go through, and that would be, just passed it. There we go. So I'm going to start out with a requester that initiates the process flow, and it works through a number of different levels. So with that, I'll come back here and start with the requester login. And so from a requester, they're going to initiate a request. So I'm going to enter the description, and let's call this webinar September new item. So that's the name of the new item request. So with that, I go to the next page. And once again, this is one use case scenario of a million different iterations and variations. And you'll get the idea when Suman starts showing the EASYProcess. So let's make this new item EASYCreate September item. And with that, let's call it new September item. Now this is kind of interesting here. This is JDE item to copy. So we recognize that new item masters can start from scratch, or possibly considering all of the conditions associated with an item, GL, branch plant, forecast. Maybe you want to do a copy. So in that particular case, we could, as an example, take this item right here, and I can copy from this item. By copying from this item, and now you're seeing the main page for the item. And this, I'm still logged in as the requester, and the item details are here. And you can see that because I did a copy item, the GL class, various rules are defaulted from that copied item. So maybe I just want to do something further with adding pricing here. And at this point, I'm going to save the item. So the item details were saved, and I want to submit it. So with submit, it's going to go to Phil Ferrali for approval, who's the product manager. So now I'm going to do a log out, and I'm going to log in as Phil. And Phil would come here under approval, and he could see that this new item, EASYCreate September item from requester, it's now in his approval. So he can go into the details here, and maybe he wants to populate the forecast elements. So we can put a web start date on here, the other date field, and default the branch plant, and save this item forecast. So Phil creates the item forecast. And by the way, you can set rules on whether the form is partially complete or fully complete. I just want to move the process to the point where I can create the item. So most of these forms are partially completed, but I still have the ability to create the item. So with that, Phil does a final approval after filling out the forecast person, and it's now going to move on to Alan Morrison, who's the director. So with that, I'm going to log out. I'm going to log in as the director. And by the way, the emails that I showed you, the interactive emails, that would all be part of this. I want to quickly work through the portal portion, but all those informative confirmation emails and request emails that you need to approve are all there. So this is last updated by Phil, the product manager, and the director is now logged in. And with the director, maybe that person wants to deal with unit of measure conversion. So I'll go in here and say I want to create, and once again, working against your UDC tables, ABC, there it is right there. So I want to save that form. So the unit of measure was created, and I do an approve on here. And now it's waiting for Kevin Evanson, who's the product safety coordinator. So I'll log out, log in as Kevin. Go to the approval tab, go to the item details, and from a product safety perspective, whatever form you want, even if this process is important. And by the way, we can work off of item type, whether it's a component. So you can have different process flows for different items, whether it's a model number or just a component. It might be 2 levels. So let's go ahead and save the product safety information. And by the way, if I go back to the original form from any user preference, you can see that the roles and permissions permit that form, and you can see things are grayed out here. Either they can't touch it or they can touch it. So we can work at the specific field level, what to show, what they're able to work against. And so now this is Kevin, Product Safety Coordinator, approving it. And almost done. We're dealing with the John Long here. So John Long is the Purchasing Coordinator. And went to the wrong tab there. So at this point, maybe that person, this J. Long, they want to add an attachment. So once again, I can come here, choose a file, add a file to the process, do a save. The attachment was saved, and I approve that. And once again, you can see if I go into the item detail page, the permissions to change the fields were off. Now if I go to the last step, and this is the publisher, so this is a Patty Mansfield, do a login, go approve, and you can see submitted by John Long. So look at the details. Maybe Patty wants to enter information in terms of shipping. Once again, you can work with any form. Maybe Patty wants to go into the item details. Now you notice Patty, as the publisher, does have full roles and permission rights to change and create. So those are all set up within the administration. So I'm not making any change, so I'll just do a close on there. And at this point, I'll approve it. And it notes that it's fully approved. There we go. So if I was to do an inquiry on here, we can see that EASYCreate September item has been approved. And at this particular point, if I go into the P4101, and I might be timed out, I guess I'm not. So if I was to do a EASY and do a find on there, there's the item right there. If I was to do a select, there's the item detail with the various tabs. So that high level is our item crate. I am going to be sending everybody that's attending for the PO to see a deliverable. I think would be great. So everybody, and by the way, Windstream Communications is one of our customers that deal with the PO crate, and so I'm going to send you this, and it's indexed so you can see what an actual deliverable dealing with a requisition self-service. It includes punch out to catalogs, export to Excel. So this Camille from Windstream, and by the way, Windstream Communications, they're creating, what is it, Kent, about $2 to $3 million a day in purchase orders. They used this solution, replaced Ariba, which was costing them a lot just in maintenance, and they were able to personalize it in a more detailed manner to their, industry and company-specific requirements.
Number one on their list was that it had to be robust. And Doug, you and I use that word a lot. And in this case, it really mattered. They were allowing us to say that the Ariba portal was down often. And when it was down, they would miss ordering deadlines, and all of a sudden pay retail for miles of wire. So being robust, being up 24 hours a day, always available, is very important for procurement.
So with that, I've worked going through the two demos. Thanks, Kent. I'm going to turn it over to Suman in terms of showing you EASYProcess. Make presenter. So Suman is going to show you the platform that all of these solutions are based on. And let me go full screen here.
Okay. Hello, everyone. So here I am showing you the workflow. Currently, this is the workflow that Doug was using when he went through the vendor onboarding. So you're looking at I'm inside EASYProcess, the platform that I was talking to in the beginning. So this is the platform workflow layer for the platform, and you are looking at the different statuses as a request goes through, the manager, the AP user, the AP admin, and ultimately when everything goes through, it goes to JDE, which is sent to JDE function here. You can completely customize this workflow based on your needs. I have one example of workflow that is being used by Fox for their vendor approval. As you see, theirs is much more complicated than ours, our base one. As you see, they go through operations, they go through legal, they have their own financier, HR. So just an example of how much the workflow can be customized because it's very flexible. Going back to the workflow, Inside each of these statuses or buckets, as you see, these are all responsible people. From here, you can also do a batch process here. The green, the one in the blue, is batch process. So I can double click inside all of these gears to specify more programming behind the scene. And this is where Doug was talking about 300 plus services. These services allows me as a programmer to drag and drop and change and create new logic into the workflow. So here's an example of from a workflow, we are calling a business function to create a vendor. As you see here, calling a master business function address book master MBF. So these are the kind of control you have from our workflow, which is the ability to call JDE Edwards business functions. As you see, if everything goes through, the request is completed. If not, it sits at the error to be resubmitted back to JDE, which can be done by your admin or any designated request processor. So that was an example of BOB workflow. You also saw the process canvas. I have another example here, which is how we work with the web parts. I will show you that. So this is a new vendor request form, the one that Doug was showing in the beginning. If you remember, it has the vendor information, it had the account information, it had request information, attachments, and everything. It's all done from here. You can see here we have the toolbox here, which you can drag and drop to add new controls to this form. You can also select and specify properties on the right. So that's what we call the UI factory, where you can create your own user interface.
And by the way, it's important to mention that about half of our customers simply want an end deliverable. They want a solution, and they look at us from a turnkey perspective. The other half of our customers do want to have some development ownership, and sometimes it's just partial development, and that can occur many times after the initial project where they say, you know what, we can see this for other usage, or we want to take control of the tweaking and the editing. And then we have other companies that simply take EASYProcess and they build applications from scratch, like the example of the East Coast customer that is doing FTP out. So when we talk about EASYProcess, you would dictate to us the level of ownership that you would want. And now we are approaching the last 5 minutes. I'm going to ask Katie about questions at this point.
We don't have any sitting right now, but if you guys have any, now would be the time to type them out. So I'll give you a few minutes to reel those in here.
Doug, someone's asking, are we independent of the JDE Edwards workflow? How do we relate to the native workflow within JDE Edwards?
That's a good question. We are independent. We're not only independent from JDE workflow. Most people consider us value-add workflow on top of JDE Edwards because we can do things like the FTP example that Suman cited. But this has nothing to do with JDE workflow nor the object management workbench, right, Suman?
That is correct. Everything sits inside our own platform. Everything runs on a Windows server, so it's completely independent of JDE Edwards. It accesses JDE Edwards as needed through either databases, APIs we have, or through business function if you have to make any change to JDE Edwards.
As a matter of fact, let me bring up a screen right here, a PowerPoint slide that touches on the fact that we do implement our application similar to JDE Edwards from a dev and test and production environments. And what's important to mention is we've got very, very strong change management. People tell us that these applications go through many iterations, not only with the taking it to go live. Explain that functionality, Suman.
Absolutely. We treat these applications as ongoing projects for you because you will have, this is a workflow product and your business will change. So if you need to add a new status somewhere in the workflow or a new logic or you have a new business requirement, who knows, we set all three environments, just like you have JDE Edwards, development, PY, PD. We have a built-in change management control, which is very much like how you have in OMW, where you can create a project, then you can make changes to the object, and that will go through different environments till you finally package it and deploy into the production. We have the similar concept here into our platform. So going through and making a change as your business change, you will go through a complete change management as if you go through in JDE Edwards.
All right. And by the way, there's a question about price, and I imagine everybody might be wondering about that, whether this is a $10,000 solution, a $100,000 solution, $1 million solution. So we could definitely cross off the last two. It's not $1 million solution. It's not a $100,000 solution. It's in the middle of being a five-figure. We do have what's called best practice, and I want to talk about that right now. So based on our selling price of it being around $50,000, and by the way, that's software and the full implementation services. Here's an example of Carolina Biological. So now this is their main workflow. So with Carolina Biological, and I'll let Suman address this, they also had parallel workflows that tied to their main workflow. So they call this an editing, a sub-workflow, won't get into the details, and there's a separate purchasing workflow. But this is a good example of, when we sit down with your requirements, if your needs fall outside of what might be considered the norm, obviously it's going to take more services on our part and more, discussions between our two. So, Suman, just to explain what those three slides were about with Carolina Biological, would you characterize that as sophisticated workflow?
Absolutely. So consider a scenario as they have where, normally workflows are linear. You follow from start to the end, where it goes to various desks, if you want to say it a desk, and a document flowing through all those desks. What if at a position you have to split that document into two pieces and they go to two different departments altogether? You have a choice. You can still make it linear and wait for one department to finish and then go to another department, which could be time consuming. You have another choice you have is that send it to two departments at the same time, and that's where for Carolina Biological we decided to split the workflow. So it goes split into two different workflows. It's called editing and purchasing, and finally it gets merged into the final workflow and then gets sent to JDE. Okay. Those are the example of custom work that we can do.
But even within linear, the functionality of workflow in terms of escalation and delegation and co-delegation, that's all basic standard workflow functionality, right?
That's an extreme example. Most of the time you will have linear workflows.
Right, right. So that's what we're talking there. A couple of other case studies, Fox with their AP processes, and let's just bring that up real quick from a case study. So this is with fictitious data, as you can see there, bank name, we're showing the Fox deliverable. Wilbur Alice, this is what their portal looks like. So I want to emphasize from a GUI and look and feel, it doesn't have to be necessarily the template that we presented, the portal look and feel. It could be different. And this is an example of Wilbur Alice with their crate form and editing customer and how it looks from that perspective. So, in general, to summarize, we've got a platform, and this platform allows us to have created over 20 applications that are being used on a regular basis out in the JDE workspace. Our bread and butter is e-commerce, so we've really perfected JD Edwards e-commerce and a payments solution. EASYCreate is up there. Our HR is up there in terms of usage, but to a large degree, because of the inherent flexibility and customization of EASYProcess, you can look at us a development platform that allows either, like I said, you to have development ownership or outsource it entirely through us. We're approaching at least in Chicago here, the 2 o'clock hour. Katie, any other final questions?
One last question is asking, have we connected with other databases to import more than one item, for example, into JD Edwards?
Suman, go ahead.
Yes, if your question is, so I'll answer that in 2 parts. Other databases, yes. Different customers, they do have item information stored somewhere else, like in SQL Server.
Or it could be
Excel.
custom JDE F55, 56 type tables.
Or your customer 55 tables.
Or any outside ODBC database, right?
So that's possible. Plus, if you want to also batch more than one item at the same time to JDE and then process it through the workflow, that's possible too.
Oh, and I didn't show that with the email. So a lot of times people like this aggregates at the end of the day simply approve all of the requests, whether it's vendors or whether it's items, so we can create an email that allows the consolidation and then the end-of-day batch update for further automation and streamlining of the processes. So there's a lot of different ways, different approaches that we take. You know, from a best practices though, I think that when I originally started out, what we hear consistently is, you know, shared folders in Excel and, you know, trying to do it with, say, Microsoft Office tools or Excel. You know, it's not as efficient, and we feel, especially with our JD Edwards expertise, integration, our forms expertise, and what we wanted to really highlight today in the webinar, our workflow expertise, we can provide you solutions that significantly improve your JDE front-end master records business processes. So with that, I am going to be following up with the slide deck and the recording. Everybody, thank you very much, and have yourself a great rest of the day. Thank you for attending.